You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Tigers beat McNeese 34-7. We went into this game sort of understanding whatever was wrong with LSU against UCLA, whatever feeling you had coming out of that game wasn't going to be fixed against McNeese. You're playing an inferior opponent. There's no way you could come out of the McNeese game feeling good. Because if you dominate them, well, you're supposed to dominate them because they're an FCS school that just lost to a Division II school. And if you struggle, you're going to feel worse because you were struggling against an FCS school. And you had some of both of that. So let's go through it. After the game, Ed Orgeron did share his thoughts on the win against McNeese.
We won the game. Very pleased with our defensive performance. Not pleased with the last touchdown on the screen. Very pleased with our pass rush. And I knew we were a good pass rushing team, but obviously we won't face stiffer opponents down the road. On offense, we couldn't get it going for a while, but we hung in there. We tried to get the run game going outside. We had several offensive linemen that were out, but we had a variety of runs, speed sweeps, tosses, counters, outside. We still had some protection problems. We need to look at it, whether it's personnel or whether it's scheme. We need to fix it because people are still going to come after us. But overall, we're pleased with the win. I thought from game 1 to game 2, we made a jump in a lot of areas. And now we need to take this next jump next week in a lot of areas.
We'll see if they can make that jump. There's always good and bad with every game. As we kind of go through the game, slow start for LSU. They did lead 17-0 at half. We saw Garrett Nussmeier for the first time this season on the last drive of the third quarter and then played the entire fourth quarter. So a lot to unpack. Let's start with the good, which was the defense. And again, as we said, you are not going to come out of this game feeling better about the defense. You would have only felt worse had they not performed well. But give them credit. At least they appeared to be on the same page. You were without Jay Ward. You were without Ali Gay. You were without Todd Harris. A lot of guys didn't play in this ball game, but still, but for the screen Orgeron mentioned there, LSU would have held McNeese under 100 total yards for the game. So to allow 142 total yards, just 91 passing, 51 rushing, to have 8 sacks on the day. When you look at the tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss for LSU in the ball game, 3 quarterback hurries, 4 passes defensed. LSU was active, they were aggressive, they were physical, and all of that was very good to see. How about Mason Smith? The hat trick, he had 3 sacks on the day. It was fantastic to see the young defensive linemen. I think right now Mason Smith and Jaquelin Roy are your best interior defensive linemen. They were awesome. Again, you play without Ali Gay, but you still had tons of pressure coming off the edge. Andre Anthony had 2.5 sacks in the ball game. So Jacoby and Guillory got in there. We got to see Mike Jones at linebacker. Again, you were playing a vastly inferior team, but you still found a way to win, which is what you want to see when you play an inferior team. And LSU's defense dominated that game against McNeese on Saturday. Now, the flip side of it is what Orgeron alluded to there. The offense for LSU was flat out not very good. And it all starts with the offensive line. Y'all have heard me say this so much, and I don't want to even keep saying it because you're probably nauseated hearing me continue to say it, but you know what I'm going to say. For everyone who said that LSU was going to be good on the offensive line because they had all these guys back, just because you have everybody back doesn't mean you're better, especially when you have everybody back from a bad unit, which they were a year ago. And I know you were without Deculus and without Cam Wire and without Chasen Hines. I don't care. There is no excuse at all for scholarship offensive linemen at LSU to go and get pushed around by McNeese, by an FCS opponent, to not be able to establish the line of scrimmage, to open up running lanes, to protect your quarterback is unacceptable. And maybe a giant part of this is a reflection on James Craig. Misses in recruiting. Maybe a giant reflection on this is on James Craig for the lack of development. Maybe a big part of this is you got a new offensive line coach teaching new terminology and technique, and they're having a little bit of a struggle there. Whatever it is, I don't care because none of it is a good enough excuse. It's McNeese. With all due respect, that's been a really good program over time, but football is one of those games where you have a physical superiority that can dominate a game. It's not like in baseball where the right pitcher's on the mound, he can handcuff a team, or you can play small ball and beat a team that slugs homers. Or in basketball where the three-point shot is the great equalizer. You can have a 5-guard lineup, but if everybody's bombs away, you can win a basketball game against a team that's athletically superior to you. We see it all the time. In football, if my 320-pound offensive lineman can push around your 260-pound defensive lineman, we should win the game. And LSU struggled to run the ball against McNeese. In the end, ended up at 3.5 yards a carry. It was just a very sluggish day offensively. You could say that I'm being tough on him. Ed Orgeron himself continued to say, this is 3, that the protection on the offensive line is still not good enough.
Not good enough. I mean, it starts with protection first. We got to protect the quarterback. We got to get better. We got to stay ahead of the change, and just need to continue to make improvement. Hopefully, with our offensive line getting back, we're going to have a better protection for our quarterback and better schemes.
I want to talk a little bit about the quarterback. I'll get there in a second because we did get to see Garrett Nussmeier, but Orgeron also was asked at point blank if he was surprised at how the offense has struggled through 2 games.
You know what? A little bit, yes, a little bit. I thought, but we had some protection problems going against our defensive line in some scrimmages, and we changed the protection one scrimmage and put a tight end in the back end there. So we've been trying several things. We want to get our athletes in space, but it's just not working, so we're going to have to look at it again, and it's all going to be about protection first. Whether it's a tight end in the back, whether it's sliding the line, whatever it may be, we have to change it.
If you're having trouble with protection, then it's on the play caller to scheme to get his athletes the ball to compensate for the protection issues, and right now Jake Peetz has been unable to crack that code. I'm not terribly surprised. Again, he's a first-time offensive coordinator. You can say all you want about the Joe Brady offense. Maybe the Joe Brady offense was actually the Joe Burrow offense, and the Jamar Chase offense, and the Justin Jefferson offense, and the Clyde Edwards-Helaire offense, and the Thaddeus Moss offense. Maybe it wasn't so much about the passing game coordinator as it was about all the dudes out there doing it. And right now, they have not figured that out one iota. I liked Jack Bech the other night. I think he is a mismatch, and we continue to see that now through 2 games. He certainly looks like he belongs, and the moment's not too big for him. Bech was LSU's leading receiver with 57 yards on 4 receptions. Another nice day for Kayshon Boutte with 5 catches and 2 touchdowns. Just incredible how they keep finding him in the red zone. He's just a giant mismatch. We did get to see Corey Keiner, 11 carries for 56 yards. The bulk of that was on that final scoring drive, though, where he had the 21-yard touch, or the 23-yard touchdown run, We also got to see Armani Goodwin for the first time. First carry goes around left end for 21 yards, comes up lame. He goes back in for 1 more carry for 2 yards, but was injured, and he's unlikely to play this week against Central Michigan. There's just not a lot to like offensively. I don't know what else to say. Max Johnson, I am surprised genuinely how much the pressure has affected him. And maybe I shouldn't be because he's a young player, but his poise a year ago as a freshman in the swamp, like we talked about so much, really was, I thought, reflective of what he was going to be, and it just hasn't worked out that way so far. They're 2 games into the season. I understand that. There's plenty of room to grow. Garrett Nussmeier went in and wasn't great. He was 3 of 10, but at least he took some chances, pushed the ball down the field. There was a brutal drop by Jeray Jenkins. He put a ball on a dime, in the bucket for Deion Smith downfield, which he couldn't haul in. But I thought Nussmeier, if nothing else, added some tempo, some pace, some energy to the offense. I thought the best play Nussmeier made all day, actually, was incomplete on first down. On second down, he was feeling the pressure. He was flushed, avoided the rush, rolled out, went up to the line of scrimmage, if you remember the play. Didn't cross the line of scrimmage, very aware to keep his eyes downfield where the line of scrimmage was, and worked his way toward the sideline, ultimately threw it away. Sometimes that's the best play you can make, is to live to play another down and to have that awareness and not trying to make something happen that isn't there. Ed Orgeron's got, I'm not saying Nussmeier played well enough to warrant more playing time. And as a matter of fact, Orgeron basically said after the game when he was asked about Nussmeier that this is still going to, listen to the context here. It's basically saying that it's still Max's job.
Good in spots. The guy's been phenomenal at practice. Phenomenal. I think he did very well. Didn't make the big plays like I thought he would, but I think he was running for his life some of the time. A couple of times his passes were dropping, but I thought he did very good. And I would have no problem putting Garrett in if something happened with Max.
I'd have no problem putting Garrett in if something happened to Max. Well, if something happened to Max, you would have no option but to put Garrett in. So, of course, you'd have to put Garrett in at that point. But the bigger thing is he's not saying anything along the lines of any type of quarterback controversy or Nussmeier playing anymore. You had a big lead on an inferior opponent, so they ran him out there to try to get him some experience. But it seems like they're sticking with Max Johnson. See how much they can improve this week against Central Michigan. They're going to need it because in 2 weeks, a week from Saturday, you go to Starkville, and Mississippi State put a hurting on NC State this past weekend. LSU's going to be a road underdog in that game against Mississippi State. I mean, get ready. That's going to be a familiar theme. LSU's not going to be favored much the rest of the way. So you're going to have to find a way to get better and get better in a hurry because the effort LSU gave on Saturday, even in a win, just wasn't good enough to beat many of the SEC teams on your schedule. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.